Ladies and gentlemen, what is going on with your money? Are you making the salary you earn? Are you earning the salary you make? Is your job a joy, or is it a slog every day? And friends and family, do they get the best of you, or do they get the rest of you after job and work are done? We're going to ask these questions and many more just like them here on the Kati Hyer Show, where we like to talk about personal finance, careers, relationships, and Jesus. And we love to have a ton of fun while we do it. I'm Kati Hyer, the host of this show, and I am here to share my husband and I's financial foibles so you don't have to make the same expensive mistakes we did. Today on the show, I am talking all about careers, productivity, and how to better balance the tension between work and home. It's a really good question now, especially after 2020 brought us all new sorts of ways to have remote work, which meant that for some of us, work never even remotely left, even long after the workday was over. Now, before I get to that, let me ask you this. Of the 500 biggest companies in America, the top 500 companies, also known under the magazine header of the Forbes 500, how many of those companies would you say were run by women? 30%? 60%? 20%? You'd be wrong on all counts, sadly, because the Forbes 500, the companies with the most sales, the biggest profit, the most employees, and a couple of other factors, these top companies were run by women only 7.4% of the time. Just 7.4%. There's a lot behind this, a lot to unpack. But one of the things that I think about when I consider why just 7.4%, one of the things I consider is this idea, this question of, well, can women really have it all? Even in 2021, we're still asking this question and saying things like, well, you can be a mom, or you can be CEO, or you can be a good partner, or you can be a good community servant, or you could be a good caretaker. Either or, instead of both and. It's a good question. And I wonder, is there anything biblically that can help lead us toward the answer? If you've been tracking along with this show for any amount of time, you'll know that I refer to our muse of this show. Each episode, it's the Proverbs 31 woman, because despite the fact that I thought of her frequently as just a stereotype of a Martha Stewart type character, she is much more than that. She's a businesswoman. She is a wonderful wife. She has investments. She buys real estate. Her children love her. Sounds like she might have it all? Perhaps. Let's see what this episode's scripture has to say. Proverbs 31:15 says, "She gets up while it is still night. She provides food for her family and portions for her female servants." Another one of the translations says, "While it is yet dark, she rises to give food to her household and orders to her maidens serving her." So in this scripture, the word food from the Hebrew sometimes means spiritual food, orders. Interesting how work is nourishing in this context, but that is another conversation for another episode. Tactically speaking, the Proverbs 31 woman who has it all, and is held up as the example of who the king should marry, she starts her day really early. Is there something to that? Benjamin Franklin said, early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. Can we believe what he says? I mean, that was a long time ago. He was the creator of numerous brilliant inventions. He was immeasurably influential on the American founding. And he was very wealthy, even though he started out penniless. Okay, so he didn't raise his children, and he didn't cook every day. That was the wife's duties. But when he was at work, he was enormously productive. And I came across a picture of Benjamin Franklin's day. He had printed out his day's schedule, and from 5 to 8, he would wake up before work and set his mind to things he called powerful goodness. Powerful goodness. He would plan his day. He would meditate on the good he was going to do in the world that day. Then he would work for 4 hours. Then he would dine and read or tend his accounts during lunchtime. Then he would work for another 4 solid hours. Then the rest of the day was diversions or musical entertainment. Family time. And he would meditate and consider what good he had done that day. So he was a prolific writer. And maybe there's something to the early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. I wonder if there's a correlation there for our careers and for our ability to build wealth. You and I have the same resources every single week. No matter how old you are, no matter how much you make, no matter where you are in your career, we all have the same thing. 168 hours. That's it. You have 168 hours each week. You can't buy, barter, sell more. That's it. That's all you get. And as I was thinking of, how is it that some people can write the Constitution and found universities and the Boston Gazette, etc. I'm talking about Ben Franklin. While some of us struggle to get out the door on a Sunday morning, talking about myself, I wonder what is going on there. Why are some of us prolifically productive and others of us struggle? Proverbs 31 woman rises while it is yet dark, and she prepares food for her household and orders for her maidens. Maybe there's something there. Sidebar, when my husband and I were clawing our way out of 6 figures of student loans, totally unnecessary student loans, I only made $35,000 when we first realized how much we owed. So I needed a second job. We needed third jobs. We needed fourth, fifth, and sixth jobs. We needed every job we could get. Well, I had little babies. I have 4 kids now, and at the time I had 3 prior to, obviously, while we were in debt. We had 2 and then 3 kids. So my options for second jobs were limited because my husband would work nights. So who was going to be home with the kids? One of the jobs that was a wonderful blessing for our family was teaching a class online. So I would wake up at 3 in the morning and I would teach English to Chinese students on the other side of the globe from 3:30 in the morning to 6:30 in the morning. Then my kids would get up and then the normal day would start. But to rise early made all the difference. I was able to sneak in a second job before my first job. And then today, whenever I wake up early, it just sets the tone so much better for my whole life, for my whole family. My family likes me a lot better when I get up early. So maybe there's something to what old Benjamin Franklin has to say. And this episode's scripture, she rises early, before it is light, reminded me of the author Laura Vandekam's book, I Know How She Does It. That's the name of the book. I Know How She Does It. And in this book, she studies 1,000, I think, some thousand successful women. They make at least $100,000 a year, and they have families. And she asks, how do you manage the tension between your home life and your work life? And instead of just throwing out theories, she asks them to log an entire week and asks them, how do you spend your whole day from morning till night? And as part of the project, each of these women wrote down exactly what they did every day, hour by hour. And from that, she was able to analyze how these high achieving women, who are also happily parts of families, who have time for themselves, who have time for their book clubs, who have time for cooking and being by themselves, how do they manage it all? I'll link that book in the show notes. You can find that at katihyershow.com or in any of the podcast notes, wherever you watch or listen to the show. It is a fascinating read. Some of the gems that I pulled out from that book when I first read it were to think more creatively about family time. For example, if family dinner is important to you, but dinner's an impossible time because there's homework and you're not really back home from work yet, well, maybe it's family breakfast. Maybe family breakfast can be that quality time. Another one of the strategies that many of the career excelling women employ, who also have families, one of the things that they do is they split their shifts. They'll get up early, do some work. Then when the kids get up, it's all about kid time. Then back to the job. Then they'll switch back into kid mode with their husband or their partner or whatever. And then later, after everybody's in bed, knock out a few more hours of work. This doesn't work for everybody. Some people are in corporate settings where the 8 to 5 is very rigid and very structured. But the book is full of ideas for how to have that career and how to have that family at the same time. So I encourage you to give it a read. Because shouldn't we be able to enjoy our families and excel in our careers and follow our passions? Why do we have to choose just one? The book has all sorts of options for how to thrive at work and life. But that's just a book. What about being productive in real life from somebody you and I definitely know? One of my friends is the most productive people I know. She is a top 10 realtor in the state of Louisiana and one of the top in the nation. She's got a little girl, and she makes time for book club and friends trips and family dinner every week, and yet she still kills it at her career. So we jump into an interview in the next segment of the show where we talk all about productivity hacks. And if you listen, you will hear she jumps into important things about how you and I can instill boundaries in a healthy way that actually help us serve our employers or our clients better. She talks about ways to use your email as a tool and the number one thing you need to do in order to get organizational clarity so you can be more productive. So let's jump into the interview with Alyssa Jenkins and I. Alyssa Jenkins, welcome to the show.
Thanks, I'm excited.
I am happy to have you on. You are my friend, and we've been friends for a few years now. We met back when I worked in title because you are a real estate agent.
Yes, I even forget that's where it all began.
Yes, because now we hang out outside of work stuff. So
yeah.
It's true. Once upon a time, we used to work in the same industry sphere.
Yeah.
And now you are one of the top real estate agents, realtors in not only Baton Rouge, not only Louisiana, but the nation. Is that an accurate assessment?
That is accurate.
I know you don't like to toot your own horn. So I'll do a little of the tooting for you. You're one of You've been recognized as one of the top 30 under 30. You're probably 40 under 40, 10 under 10, 1 under 1, all
Yes.
those awards and accomplishments. And so one of
Our
the reasons,
industry loves awards.
yes, the real estate agent, the real estate world loves awards. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to give you an award for being the best real estate agent professional to come on the show.
Thank you.
Just add it to your accolades.
Perfect. I will.
Outside of being just an overall amazing person and good friend of mine, I wanted to have you on the show because, of course, I like to talk about careers as part of the woman's experience, the woman's professional woman's life. And you talk a lot about taking your career seriously and treating it professionally, no matter what that is for our listeners. I thought that would be really helpful to talk about. So give me a little background on why you started talking about professionalism.
Yes, it is something I'm very passionate about. And I think it originated because when I was a newer agent, so I've been in real estate for about 10 years now. And the first couple years, I was just an open book. I was a sponge. I was absorbing anything, any advice I could get, anything that anybody had. And as my success grew, I had people asking me for advice and, coffee dates and things like that. And it seemed like, I think this can go for real estate. And I think this can go for anybody who runs their own business, especially like outside of corporate America. But boundaries have left the entrepreneur. It has almost become glorified that, oh, if you need me at 10 o'clock at night, you call me, or, you can text me anytime, or you can, people are so scared. There's this scarcity mindset, especially when you are your own business. And what that is leading to is burnout and failure. And I was seeing it over and over and over again. And it just let me know that this is a problem.
And you saw that long before 2020, just because of the nature of your industry.
Right. So I really started seeing this about 7 years ago when I became successful in the sense that I was actually finally selling houses consistently. And I was having young people, older people, people who were new in the industry, people who had been in the industry forever reach out to me and say, I just don't understand like how you can do what you do and still have a family and still have friends and like make time for things. And it was funny to me because it was that was never a hard thing for me. Like it, for some reason, it just came natural to me to say, no, I'm not responding to your text message at 10 o'clock at night. Like I'm at home in bed, or I'm watching our show with my husband, or I'm with my baby. And I just felt like I'm not an emergency room doctor.
Yeah.
So no one's going to die if I answer your question about the plumbing situation tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Right.
But the problem is that as an entrepreneur and, as someone in real estate, your cell phone is like so accessible that your phone number is everywhere. So people just think I can just text them. Oh, I'm thinking about it now, so I'm just going to text them. But it's like, do you do that to your CPA? Like, do you text your CPA at 10 o'clock at night? Or do you text your dentist at 10 o'clock at night and say, hey, can I get a clean tomorrow? Like, no, you wait till the office opens and you call. Or so I just became really passionate about bringing professionalism back to not just real estate, but entrepreneurs in general. Like people who do, it's funny because that is actually what originated. That's what inspired my podcast to start.
And I should have said that you have a wonderful podcast that you co-host with our friend Katie Caldwell. She's also a realtor, and it's called the Hustle Humbly podcast. So listen in, people. It's a good one.
Yeah. So we started it about a little over a year ago. We just had our 1 year anniversary. And it has been amazing to see, because we're obviously both realtors, so that's what we're speaking to the most. We talk a lot about boundaries and just
Well, because both of
protecting.
you are working moms, right? You both have
Yes, we're both
kids.
working moms. We're with totally different companies. Even how we do business is different,
Right.
but we both have the same core values when it comes to work is to provide for your family. And if work is getting the best of you and your family is getting your leftovers, then what's the point of working at all?
Ouch. If work is getting the best of you and your family is getting the leftovers, what is the point?
And so we started getting people outside of the real estate industry. It's funny because we get like a lot of hairdressers, people who own boutiques. We were just seeing entrepreneurs come out of the woodwork.
Nice.
Because they're not corporate America, and they
Right.
don't have someone saying, okay, it's 5:00, clock out. You can go home and work on your laptop until 2 a.m. if you want to. And it's really important that you are implementing boundaries so that you don't wake up one day and realize your family's gone, you haven't met any of your goals.
Right.
The whole point of working just
and you're
drove
exhausted.
away. You're exhausted, you're burnt out, you don't even like what you do anymore.
Right.
So that's kind of how it all originated, is because I was seeing it so much in my industry. And then when we started the podcast, we had people coming out of all sorts of industries saying that they're having the same struggle. And it's a mindset thing.
Yeah, to have those boundaries. And now that the pandemic has happened, even corporate America, people in a typical 9 to 5, the things that enable them to work remotely are some of the tools that you and all your realtor colleagues have available to you and have had for a long time, which is all these abilities to work from your phone or work from your car or work from everywhere. So the boundary between work and the rest of your life just kind of evaporated in 2020.
Yes.
And people work around the clock all the time. A friend of mine was just telling me someone texted a vendor texted her at 10 o'clock at night. Can I have this? Blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't an emergency. What did you say? Give yourself boundaries. You're not an emergency room doctor.
Yeah, nobody's going to die.
No one's going to die
if you wait. And the thing is that, there are times where my husband's at the hunting camp. I'm sitting on the couch watching my show. A client texts me at 8:30 asking a question that could totally wait until tomorrow. And while, yes, it would be very easy and offend nobody if I responded to that text message at 8:30, tomorrow, when my husband is home and we're trying to watch our show, that person will text again. And they will be confused why, how come I get a response sometimes and sometimes I don't? So it's even about, like, even if it's easy, and sometimes I want to respond because it's just easier to at that time, but I also have to train my people that if you text me this late at night, you're going to get a response at maybe 8 or 9 a.m. the next morning.
Right. And so part of training people is communicating that you have a boundary and you're going to talk not at midnight, but in a normal daytime hour on email.
Yes. Yes. And I do have communication with my clients about that, about it's funny because it's kind of the opposite of what people preach, especially in our industry. Like, everything is like, accommodate the client, and the client is the boss, and however they want to communicate,
or the customer's always right.
The customer is always right. You're at the mercy of the client. But guess what? If you have several clients and you have your phone going off at all different times of the day, so I communicate with my clients up front, and this is to serve them better. So I'll say, hey, I just want to be honest with you. Email is always the best way to reach me, especially if you want me to do research on something. I said, because what I don't want to happen is I don't want to read your text while I'm in a showing, because I don't trust my brain. Like, I'm just honest with them. I say, I don't want to read it and say, oh yeah, after this appointment, I'll go do that. And then guess what? After this appointment, there's more things, and you
Right.
just, I mean, we're not perfect. And I tell them I'm not perfect. I don't want to forget something. And if it's in my email, it'll never be forgotten. But text messages just keep going
That is a
further and
perfect
further.
segue into your principle about a zero inbox.
Yes.
I love this. So, listeners, people tuning in, this is one of my favorite things that Alyssa has ever taught me, and it's about how you manage your email inbox as a productivity tool. So, would
Yeah,
you tell us quickly about your approach?
I will. And I'm going to refer you real quick to what episode number, because I teach a class for realtors on helping keep their email clean.
I will be happy to link it in the show notes as well. So
Perfect.
just send it to me by email and I will
I will
include it
do
in the
that.
show notes.
Awesome. I will do that.
Okay.
So I was going to different offices, not just my office, and I was helping people. And it's funny because I was finding that they were like hoarding their email the same way that they were hoarding things in their house, and the same way they were hoarding things in their closet, and the same way they were, it was like everybody seems like they're so discombobulated and running around like how many times do you run into someone and you're like, hey, how are you? And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so busy and blah 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 blah. And it seems like that's how everybody is. But what I was learning is that people are just, they're running on empty and they're not keeping their life organized.
Right. They're not mentally organized. And so
They're not,
you can
no.
see it on the outside.
Yes. And email is hard. Email is tricky because you overthink it and it takes practice, but it is a skill set. Like you can learn how to be efficient in email. It takes practice.
So what do you do?
So it's funny because in the beginning when I was newer and didn't have as much business and I was just like, I'll help anybody who needs help, I would actually sit down with people and go through their email with them for 2 or 3 hours and get it under control. But the problem I was seeing with that was that because I was doing it while they were sitting next to me, they weren't feeling the pain of doing it.
Right.
And so within 3 or 4 weeks, it was back to where it started. And so now that's what originated like my little class that I teach. I don't charge for it or anything, but basically the first step would be to scroll back to the oldest email that you have.
Number one, go all the way back.
Number one, yes. And sit and just say, what is this? Why is it here? Is it a date that needs to go in my calendar? Is it a person that needs to be added to my contacts? Is it telling me I need to register for something?
Don't just let it sit there, turn it into action.
Yes. So the goal is that your email is actually your to-do list. Email is not meant for storage. You will eventually run out of storage. And it will tell you, hey, I can't receive any more emails until you delete some, because that's not what email is made for. It's not made for storage.
If we thought about a physical mailbox, you couldn't just keep putting letters in forever and ever. You got to actually do something with it.
And then people are like, well, I might need that one day. Okay, so say it's a contact information for a roofer. Well, it doesn't need to be in your email. Put it where it belongs, either in your contacts or wherever you keep your things, and then delete the email. But people have this fear-based mindset that they are going to delete something important.
The packed email becomes kind of a security blanket.
Yes. And they just, even though they have no idea what it is, they just want it there. But what has happened, and it's hard because anytime you self-reflect and have to have hard conversations with yourself and call yourself out, it's hard. Okay. It's not easy. But what was happening is, as people started from the back, they were finding things that they let slip through the cracks. Like, oh man, this person asked me when I was available next week 4 months ago. and I never got back to them. I just kept it in my email thinking I'm going to get back to this when
Right.
I get, or, somebody asked them to do something. People were finding all sorts of things. So this security blanket was actually causing a lot of problems in their business. And email, I feel, is the professional way to communicate. Like if you are, or maybe a phone call. It's not that I'm
Absolutely.
against texting, but when you do have the client load like that I have, or that other entrepreneurs have, like I know hairdressers, they can't get a text from every single person whose hair they do asking for appointments. Like there's a system for that.
Right.
And my goal is that my text messages are because I do like to sit on the couch at night and text my girlfriends or
Absolutely.
my sister or and so it's like if my
Well,
phone,
you can't turn this off. It's
right,
always with you. So you need that boundary, even if it's texts are for personal, email is for friends. I mean, email is for business.
yep,
Give yourself the breadth of the boundary.
yes,
It'll do a world of good.
yeah,
And so you turn it on, on its head. You take email, and instead of being a storage bin forever and ever I'm in, you turn it into a to-do list.
mm-hmm.
So how many emails are in your inbox right now?
Right now I have 14 emails in my
Total.
inbox. Yes, total. 2 of them have not been opened yet.
So 2 unread emails and 14 total. And how many will there be by the end of your workday today?
I would say I try to get it down to like maybe 3 or 4, because there are things that of course carry into the next day, or something I need to remember to do tomorrow. Now, if it's something I need to remember to do next week, it will not sit in there for a week. I will either put something on my calendar to say, hey, today is the day you're supposed to do XYZ,
Right.
or do whatever I need to do for that. But if it's something that I'm like, I have got to remember to do this tomorrow, to me, that is still on the to-do list. And then after I do what the email says, I delete it, which is my mental way of checking something off the list. And for all the list makers out there, it's such a good feeling to be like, oh, I did that.
Absolutely. There's nothing more satisfying than a productive day with an empty inbox at the end of the day. You
Yes.
did
And
it all.
I would say maybe once a week, I usually hit 0, where it says like, you have no mail. And I'm like, oh, that's a great feeling,
That is a really good feeling.
Yeah, but the goal is that it's always manageable, and that, I can handle 2 or 3 things in there, but I don't want them there very long because I don't want to procrastinate either.
Right.
And it's just really important. But the problem is people lose so much, and they put their email places it doesn't belong.
Like what?
So there's so much clutter with coupons and sales and junk, and
Yes. So what do they have to do?
they have to unsubscribe.
My favorite tip. Number 1 tip is unsubscribe.
Number 1 is unsubscribe. Number 2 is stop subscribing.
Except for to the Hustle Humbly podcast and the Kati Hyer Show. Everything else, unsubscribe.
And we don't even have a newsletter. So
I know.
But it's just like whenever you check out somewhere, people say like, oh, do you have an email? It's perfectly fine to say only a work email, so I can't give it out. You need to treat it like it's sacred. And then the other problem is that people say, well, my work email is pretty under control, but my personal email is just a disaster. Well, to me, it's like, that's not okay either, because me remembering that I have a final walkthrough at 8 a.m. is just as important as me remembering that tomorrow is rainbow day at school and I'm supposed to send her to school in rainbow socks.
Right.
Like, I don't want to forget either one of those things.
Right.
So,
interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that's like saying my personal life isn't that important, but my email for my work is clean, or sometimes it's vice versa. So
Ouch, you're convicting me right now. So my
yeah,
mind should be organized at work as organized as it is at home.
yes. Now for me, what works for me is I have one email. It's
So you're
it's
forced to keep up with it.
yeah, well, I don't want 4 to-do lists
Yeah, true.
because then that makes my brain go, okay, I have to go here and then I have to go here. I have to check the school calendar. I have to check the work calendar. Like for me, if somebody needs something from me, email it here. So like my daughter's daycare has my work email address is the only email address that I have. And whenever they send the January newsletter, I open it. I put all the January dates on my calendar to remember this day is smoothie day. Don't
And
forget
then
$3.
you
This
delete
day
it.
is this. If also that email tells me, oh, wait, I don't have rainbow socks. Amazon rainbow socks. Okay. So, like, when I get that email, that one email may have like 7 things for me to do. It means I need to add everything to my calendar, order anything that is needed for the month of January for school, block off anything. And then once I like have everything that the email says in its place and what she needs for school is ordered, I delete the email.
When you say it like that, it's so simple, but typically people just mark as read, scroll on, and then think, I'll come back to that later.
Yes.
But you don't.
Which leads to it being rainbow sock day and you don't even have rainbow socks. And then you're going to Walmart at like 10 p.m. looking for these things.
Yep.
And so it's like whenever that email is me saying, oh, and that's another good point too, is that some emails require more time before you can delete them. So like I know once a month when I get the school email, it's going to take me probably about 10 to 15 minutes to put everything on my calendar, make sure that I have, if I don't have what I need for a certain day, that I Amazon it so it'll be here in 2 days and it'll be ready in 3 weeks when that day comes on my calendar. And then I can just delete the email. So
I think these two things, just number one, unsubscribing from everything, and number two, scrolling all the way back and doing what you need to do with the email and then deleting it, gives such a breath of fresh air for your mind.
oh, it's so freeing.
You need that freedom because you need those boundaries and you need that organization to be able to manage the house, manage the career, manage all of the things that you do every day in life. And so as we run short on time, I just want to grab one more thing because part of the show is a deep dive into the Bible verses that make up the Proverbs 31 woman. And so many of them are about her industriousness or how she works or how she puts herself to a task or how she, gives her mind and her intent to the things she does. And one of the things that you say, or that I've seen you post, and that's even in your email signature, is this quote. And it's not about the business that you do. It's about the person you become by doing that business. So I wanted to just say, where did that come from? I've never heard this story. We didn't rehearse this beforehand. Why is that there and why is that important?
I have had that in my email signature for years, and I don't even remember where it was the first time I saw it. And I'm not here to say that I'm perfect and that my email never gets out of control.
Right.
And I'm not here to say that there aren't moments where I need to like give myself grace and
absolutely
sit back and go, okay, things feel a little wonky. Am I in a good place in my heart, in my brain, in my family? What's off kilter? And I think that as an Enneagram 3 achiever, a doer, like I do enjoy doing, going, being efficient, keeping things clean, like always on the go. But at the same time, I think in any profession, in any industry, we always have to go back to make sure that we are checking ourselves into what is it making us become. Because if you go unchecked, it's very easy to get into the achievement mode,
Right.
just being productive. And I can get sucked into that just as much as anybody can. And it does take constant evaluation of saying, like, hey, as my success grows or as this is happening, is the goal still that my family is number one? Are
Hmm.
they number one? Do they feel like they're number one?
That goes right back to what you said earlier, which was if you give everything at work and then you give your family the leftovers, what is the point?
What's the point? And I can say, like, there are days where I have come home and I don't want to sit on the ground and play with my toddler because I'm so exhausted, and I don't want to pretend to be a unicorn because I'm too tired.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to pretend to be a unicorn. Well,
Yeah.
and I absolutely have struggled with boundaries for work, being on all the time, 24/7. Of course, you can text me on Christmas. I'm here for you.
Oh,
No, no, no. I have to say no. So I am also not here as any kind of perfect example. I have learned quite a bit from you over the course of our friendship, just about productivity and how to stay organized and how to let that all work together, as we're not a separate self at work and a separate self at our family. Like, we're the same self. So
yeah.
how can they
People have
help each other?
found it hard to say, like, oh, I have to either be mom or work. And that just leads to feelings of failure and
Yeah.
defeat, because we're not these like separate beings. I'm working for my family, and
Right.
sometimes my family makes sacrifices because I'm working for them, and it's
Right.
just a back and forth thing. And but I think it is important because I see people go unchecked.
Hmm.
I see what it can do to
Right.
your family and to your vision. Like, you could focus on the wrong goal. So I think it's really important that in the hustle culture of America that we have, that we glorify so much,
Right.
I will say, whenever you come across someone that is successful, but also not running around like a chicken with their head cut off, it makes people go, I want to do that.
Yeah. That's so refreshing.
Yeah. And so my goal was always to like help encourage people to be that person. And whenever I do come to someone that's just like, oh, I'm so busy, I have this, I have that, my goal is to be like, hey, let's see where we are. And it really doesn't take that long to get back to where you need to be, but going unchecked will make it worse. So that quote came from just remembering to check yourself.
Good stuff. Remember to check yourself. It is not about the type of business that you do, it is about the kind of person you become by doing that business. That's the quote we ended on in that segment. That was Alyssa Jenkins. She is just a wonderful friend of mine, and she gave us those 3 good lessons. I took some notes on my child's space coloring book for kids notebook because that's the only thing I had near me. So remember, no matter if you work for yourself or if you're in small business or in the corporate world, boundaries are so important. You have to have boundaries. The second thing that we jumped into was, how do you use your email as a tool for you? Make sure it's not just a Monica closet from Friends where everything goes to die. Let it be your to-do list. Do something with each email that you get and then delete it or file it away. Some people's workplaces, you can't delete your emails. That's not part of workplace policy, but you can clear them out so that you can clear your mind and be finished and organized. And then the last thing is to treat your email address as if it is sacred, because it is. It is your access to you. So unsubscribe from all those food sales and clothing sales and Amazon sales, all those things that just clutter up your mind so that you don't miss the things that are really important. I will link Alyssa's podcast in the show notes. And man, I'm just looking forward to having her on again next time for more productivity hacks. Thank you, Alyssa. Now, you know, I love to talk about one of the most important personal finance productivity hacks, and those all have to do with your budget. Now, don't be alarmed. I did say the B word right away, but it's also known as your financial blueprint or your roadmap or your travel itinerary. Don't get stuck on the word budget. I know some people see that as a straitjacket, but it's not about constraint. It's about freedom. It's about saying, these are my goals, and so I am free to spend within these bounds of the budget so that I have a pathway forward to my goals. So once you have put your plan into place, it is crucial that you track with it. So if you have a transaction, you simply need to log into your budget or open that scratch pad or log into an app and track your transactions. So if you click on the Add New Transaction button in the EveryDollar app, which is the one my husband and I use, you can add, for example, $30 for gas. And then you will choose exactly which budget item it will go into. So I'll put $30 for gas in the transportation budget. I'll click Track Expense. And then all of a sudden, my line item for how much I was planning to spend on gas is updated because it told me what I had planned. I planned to spend $200 a month. And now that I've spent some money, $30, I have 170 left. And if you were looking at the budget, you can see yourself how easy it is to track that transaction. Very simple, very easy, but you have to stay on it. It's not a one and done thing where you make it at the beginning of the year and then leave it. It's a dynamic thing you have to stay on top of. Let's see if we have any mail this week. In the mailbag, it says, is it too late to start? Is it too late to start? No. It's the middle of January. You can start a budget right now. It could be January 30th and you could start a January budget. It's never too late to start a plan. The earlier, the more effective, the better. But it doesn't matter if you're close to retirement and you're just starting the baby steps. It doesn't matter if you are older or younger. It does not matter. Now is a perfect time to start. When's the perfect time to plant a fruit tree? 20 years ago? When's the next best time? Right now. So do it now. I hope this was helpful to you. If you would like to submit a question, email me at katihyershow@gmail.com. If you want to check out any of the resources I mentioned, just go to the show notes on your podcast app, on the YouTube channel, or at katihyer.com. Hope this was helpful and encouraging to you. And I just have one question. Ladies, what's going on with your money?